Athletes, take your mark, get set. It's time for the Addict II Athlete podcast. Everybody out there, Coach Blu Robinson here. I want to thank you all so much for downloading, sharing, and subscribing to the podcast. Greatly appreciate you doing so. As always, we'd love to have you jump on addict2athlete.org to jump on and find out all of our content, backlog podcasts, information about how to start a chapter of Addict II Athlete in your community. Shoot, right now with the holiday seasons on the approach, jump into our team store, get yourself some running gear. You know, you got some New Year's resolutions on the horizon. You might as well look the part. So jump on there, check out all that we have to offer. And before we get rocking and rolling, I want to thank you all so much for being part and participants in the Project ELF. Project ELF is our yearly Sub for Santa service project that we help individuals who might have fallen on hard times be able to provide Christmas for their families. We are full swing into this right now, and I want to thank all of our donors and all the people who have been serving up to this point to make that happen. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts on Team Addict II Athlete. Athlete's got a great guest in studio today. I'm excited to talk to him because of the passion that he just resonates. And the team that he belongs to, I think, are probably the most amazing group of individuals that I've been able to discover in the last year or so. And if you remember, not too long ago, I think in April of this year, 2024, we spoke to one of the founders, Anna, about the Speed Freaks program in God's country, New Zealand. And so we have arranged to, create what we like to call it maybe a time machine to get Ben Fraser online. He's actually calling us from the future, it sounds like. So Ben, I'm excited to have you here, brother. Welcome to the Addict II Athlete podcast. Let's introduce you to Team Addict II Athlete.
Kia ora, Coach Blu and listeners. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm incredibly grateful. I appreciate everything you do, Blu, and I'm a big fan of the podcast. Anna introduced it to me earlier in the year. And I must say, before I introduce myself, your intro music is the best in the business. It just gets me so fired up and so excited about life every time I hear that intro music start. So,
well, then we won't change it then.
Yeah, no, and then you back it up with these incredibly inspiring and informative conversations around recovery, mental health, and running, being an athlete. So I'm very, very humbled and grateful for the opportunity today to share a little bit about myself and the Speed Freaks and my own sort of journey from addict to athlete. So I guess to introduce myself, as yes, I am coming to you from the future. My name is Ben. I am in just outside of Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, New Zealand. So I'm not sure how many hours ahead we are, but I think we're about 20 hours ahead or something like that. So
yeah,
everything's fine in the future. You go out and enjoy your day.
I love it.
Now, if you had asked me to introduce myself 5 years ago, and if I was brutally honest back then, I would have said, my name's Ben. I have got an overwhelming sense of hopelessness. I feel lonely. I have trouble holding down a job. My family are worried about me. I can't hold down a relationship. I've got these good intentions, but I'm scared, and I'm riddled with guilt and fear, and alcoholism or addiction have sort of brought me to my knees, and I didn't know what to do. You're asking me this question today, 5 years on, and today I can proudly say that I haven't needed to reach for a bottle or a substance, and in January it'll be five years. I'm a present father. I'm a partner. I have rebuilt and have incredible relationships with my family members. I've got a very successful career in the corporate world.
Beautiful.
I love running half marathons and ultra marathons. I love trail running.
Beautiful.
I love pacing events as well. Just recently, I can add triathlon to the list. I thought, hey,
there you go.
I love running. Why not add two more disciplines in?
Absolutely.
And I've lost 60 kilos through this journey as well. Nice. So I think that works out to be about 130 pounds.
Yeah.
And your
wow, brother.
Yeah. And most importantly, I get the opportunity to sort of give back and be of service through my role as a volunteer Speed Freaks coach.
Beautiful. Man, that That is a resume and a half, man. And I love hearing that because that is literally our erase and replace philosophy, like in action. I love that. Ben, you unloaded a lot right there. And I want to start maybe with this I am, because your I ams are absolutely the goal on why we want to make these adjustments and changes in the first place, I believe. And I don't think we realize how powerful the I am statement is. It's the most powerful word we as humans can use, right? And so back in 2011, when I started Addict II Athlete, I was really nervous about wanting to carry on the tradition of identifying ourselves as addicts. Hello, I'm Blue and I am an addict, because I've been clean now since 1996. That seems like a millennia ago. There is no way on this green earth that God provides for us that I'd walk into a meeting and say, hello, I'm Blue, I'm an addict, because I'm so much more than that now. I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a scholar, I'm a coach, I'm an athlete, I'm all these other things. And yeah, I'm an addict, but it's a part of me. It's not who I am. As you started to make the shift from the hopelessness, the addict, to all that stuff, how hard was it for you to truly start to believe that, wait a minute, I'm more than this? Because I think that crossover sometimes is hard for us to let go of. And like you said, you've seen this because now you can tangibly feel it. But at the beginning, tell me a little bit about your journey through your addiction to that crossover point where you're like, wait a minute, I'm more than this. I love the aha moments we have, that pivot moment where we're like, I'm done. I'm leaving this behind. What was that moment for you?
Yes, I absolutely agree with you, Blue. What was the crossover point? I think I agree with you in the sense that the way that I spoke to myself was all negative. I am, insert negative word. I am, insert negative word. And I would never talk to someone else the way that I spoke to myself.
So true.
I probably wouldn't let anyone else speak to me the way that I spoke to myself. So why am I letting myself, call myself these names? I needed to take action. Move follows action. I think even through my, when I felt like I was on my knees and I was hopelessness, I still had good intentions.
Yeah.
I still wanted to do the right thing, but I needed to back that up with actions. And it started by, small, achievable things, getting out of nature. I didn't go from one day being 140 kilos, not being able to walk to the end of the driveway, to running a 100-kilometre ultra marathon the next day. No. What I could do the next day is I could put my headphones on, I could put on an inspiring podcast or an inspiring audiobook, and I could walk. I couldn't run at the start. But I would do that every day. I found it very meditative, and initially it was all on my own. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that community yet.
Yeah.
The game changer for me was finding the community.
Yes.
By making these small choices each day, and instead of saying I am a piece of whatever, I am this, I am that, I would say I'm someone who walks every day. And then eventually that became I am someone who walks to a lamppost, runs to a lamppost.
Yeah.
And then a few months in, I came home one day in tears because I was now someone who just ran 3Ks around the block.
Yeah, consecutively.
That's more, I'm more proud of that than I am my 100K ultra marathon or the 50-kilometre runs I've done or halving my marathon or almost halving my marathon time in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
That first initial, because that gave me belief in it. It gave me hope, and it changed the conversations I had with myself. In saying that, it still took me a long time to say to myself, I'm Ben and I'm a runner. I'm Ben and I'm an athlete. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen overnight, but I proved it to myself by just taking those actions, every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious. You're right. You talk about finding that community. It's interesting when we're in the thick of things around the addiction, whether we've got our drinking pals or using buddies, and then you got these people that you kind of always see in the corner, side of your eyes. You're driving to work, whatever. These people that are out there running, and you're like, "What are you doing? Running's for criminals, right? Like you run away from something. You don't run towards something." So it's one of these things where there for a while, it's this weird kind of pivot moment where you're on an island all by yourself. It's like you feel kind of alone until you find that. I'm curious about that community, because somewhere you decided to get up and move. And I'm a firm believer, like Anna, like movement equals healing. And I've done therapy groups and I've worked in treatment centers and I've had groups of people and they all just kind of feel like blah. But the minute we start moving, the minute we go out and, hike or run or just go outside to move, to connect with Mother Earth, something happens inside of our brains that starts the processing of letting stuff go. When did you seriously cross the threshold from like staying stuck in the addiction to like, I'm moving? What was that first mile, that first meter, whatever? What was the first thing that you're like, I felt better now than I did when I started? Something's here. Because I love that spark that someone gets where they're like, I just did this. What was that first experience with moving that kind of made you fall in love with the possibilities?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about community there.
Yeah.
Because if I look back through my sort of late teens, 20s, early 30s, I knew there was something in movement. Because whenever my life got hard or something big happened, I lost a girlfriend, I lost a job, I would turn to movement. I would turn to running. And I would say, I'm going to run a 10K or I'm going to run a half marathon. Most of the time I never made it. But I would stick at it for a couple of months until my life improved, just as a consequence of, as a side effect of getting out there and moving every day. Yeah. And then I'd go, well, my life is better now. I'm going to go back to the way I was. And then slowly, the movement would stop and I would end up back where I was. What changed this time? As I got to that same point and the universe provided me with a community, I was searching for it. I was searching for it through podcasts and audiobooks and people I followed on Instagram. I had inspiration and I had hope. And then I found that community. I got myself a coach who was also in recovery, and that was a real game changer for me. And there was a group of people. This is prior to the Speed Freaks moving to Auckland. There was a group of people, a very small group, who would run around a big estuary. It was sort of a 5 or 6K loop, and they do it every Sunday morning. And I had been doing this on my own for a while, but I knew about them, and I thought I could relate to them. And one day I joined them, and I was very nervous because I thought, well, I can't run 5 or 6Ks yet. Yeah. They said, no, come along. And, I ran, walked, and I got round and we all had coffee afterwards and I spoke, and it wasn't a formal thing. It was just a group of people. And it was finding that community, and that community's just grown and grown and grown over the last 4.5 years. And that was the game changer. That's why it worked for me. I love this time compared to the many times that I tried. So I knew there was something in there. I knew there was something in that transformation from addict to athlete, getting out in nature, getting your heart rate up. I mean, I haven't done, you'd know a lot more about the science involved, and there is a lot of science involved now. And I didn't know all of that, but I had a feeling. And it turned out to be true, and it's certainly been a game changer for me. So the key was finding that community.
I love it. I don't think we put enough stock and stewardship into the responsibilities of us coming out of our comfort zones to be able to like tiptoe into a new group, a new tribe, so to speak. Because when we're kids, it's easy, right? You go to a park, you go to a playground. If the kid's about your height, you're like, hey, we're friends. We can't do that as an adult. One, it'd be super creepy and we'd probably be arrested. The second is we have all these notions in our heads that like we're not going to be accepted. So I always find it amazing when an adult breaches their comfort zone and comes in and says, what's this Speed Freak group about? What's this Addict to Athlete about? I love what you're doing, but I'm not a runner. You probably heard this with new people coming in, like, I love what you guys do. I love the energy, but I'm not a runner. And it's like, neither am I. Like, I'm not a runner, but I run because it feels good when I'm done. It's the same thing like with an addict. We weren't just addicts, right? We that's not what we aimed for when we were young. We involved ourselves in it. It's the same kind of concept. When you cross that threshold of like, hey, you have something that I want to check this out. It's a game changer. When you get, for you or when someone else new comes in, how do you capitalize on you just made the best decision of your life because you're choosing in? Like, that's the coolest feeling, isn't it? I mean, because I'm sure from what Anna described and from what I've watched, because I watched you guys close because I love what you're doing, that team is strong. And you can see it in the body language. You can see it in the smiles. You can see it in the consistency. How amazing was that to have people that cared about you? Because on Team Addict II Athlete, I knew where my athletes were Friday night. They weren't out partying and goofing off because Saturday morning they had a race. And if they're not at the starting line, what were you doing? Right. So all of a sudden you have this weird accountability with these people that just care about you. How weird was that, giving your heart to some of these folks that cared? You're like, wow, you guys really care what I'm doing, where I'm at. Was that kind of an amazing feeling, or was it a little nerve-wracking at the beginning?
It wasn't nerve-wracking. I think I anticipated it was going to be. But
beautiful.
It felt natural and non-pretentious and welcoming and exciting, to be part of. And it was instrumental in me changing the conversations I was having with myself around that I am X.
Yes.
I am someone who is wanted and I'm someone who doesn't go out partying on a Saturday night because every Sunday morning I have to meet a group of wonderful people and we're going to walk around the estuary together and watch the sunrise and laugh and joke and have fun.
Yes. I love it, man. I love it. And that's where I think the shift becomes. I'm curious then with that, because there are the people around us that are used to us on the other side of the coin. They're like, wait a minute, you're my drinking buddy. You're a dope guy. Like, what is this? Where are you going? It's hard because you have to, what we call like erase and then replace, meaning like I've got to erase this old person that I'm not real fond of and replace it with someone I know I can be. But that means there's possibility of having collateral like fallout, meaning those relationships, those friends, those people, they're going to keep us stuck. And it's hard because you understand this, Ben. There are some of those folks that we build these relationships with that are very real and genuine, but they keep us stuck. Letting go of those are sometimes the hardest because they're real relationships. There's a book I read by, what was it? Bill W. I think it was, Bill W., founder of the 12 steps. And he had a friend named Ebby. And Ebby was his drinking buddy. But when Bill W. decided to start getting sober and he met Dr. Bob and he started creating this program, started serving, started getting, like a passion and a purpose, his buddy Ebby got left in the wake. And Ebby was so hopeful that Bill would come back to the pub, back to the bar, that, he kind of emotionally tried to sabotage, and he had to leave Ebby behind. And the whole book is talking about this relationship, about like, I love him, but I have to let him go. That's hard to do, but it's better when you have other people saying, inspire them through doing this. So I know there were people that you had to leave in your wake, and it's hard. How did you adjust that? Because at the end of the day, you weren't doing this for the speed freaks. You weren't doing this for the people that you drink with or what have you. You were doing this for you. How hard was it to choose you first after having a life of choosing others?
It was hard. And I think in my case, I had an extra layer and I really did have to erase myself because I had also worked in the liquor industry for many years.
Well, yeah.
So it was a big part of my identity.
Yes.
I was Ben the beer rep. So not only was I sort of doing this, getting up to what I was getting up to in my personal life, but when I could hold down a job, it was part of my identity as
Wow.
So I think what had happened through the last few years of my dependency or my sort of using is the people who had really cared about me had sort of, I'd moved through friends groups, not sort of by choice, but it had just sort of happened because I wanted to, if I was going to be around people, I wanted to be around people who were accepting of what I was doing.
For sure.
So what actually happened initially is some of those people who the relationships had fallen down, they actually started to come back into my life.
Wow. Yeah.
And that took time.
Yes.
Because some of these people I'd hurt. And I don't think I really struggled because I was inspired. I had a spark of inspiration and I wanted to surround myself with people I wanted to be like. And the type of people who will get up at AM on a cold, windy morning to go and run through a forest or over a mountain.
Yes.
They're the kind of people I want in my life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the other part is, I'm honest, I had isolated myself so much by the end of it that there weren't a lot of people left. And I have a huge community now of friends and family, and it blows my mind. I'm incredibly grateful. But 5 years ago, by the end of it, I was very isolated. So there weren't really any strong relationships left that I had to sort of cut off or have any hard conversations. There were a few, and I didn't come across any major roadblocks. I was talking to myself. I was someone who was on a new path now.
Yeah.
And it was the most important thing in the world to me.
Man, you spoke something that caught a chord with me. I'll probably get emotional. Coach Blu's a crier. I don't know if you noticed on the podcast.
So
you mentioned the isolation of it all. And just the way you described that, I remember days like that where we felt so alone, even though we were surrounded by people. That the difference between those feelings of being isolated and alone to the integration and the community, it is such a beautiful thing. The energy, the spirit, the person you are, I can feel the energy even from yesterday, because again, we're in a time zone here. You bring this spirit of recovery and just love and compassion. I can feel it here, brother. And so you are not supposed to be in a world of isolation, right? You're supposed to be in a world of inclusion, of inspiration. That must have been a really hard time for you, because I think at the core of you, your higher power is probably saying, what are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to be here. When you look back now, and this is the beauty, I think, of running metaphors and recovery. You're running right now for your horizon. All of us are, right? And the funny thing when you're doing ultras and stuff, there's one out here. I should make you come out here and do it with us. It's called the Pony Express 50, right? And 100. It's on the Pony Express Trail, which is flat as a pancake, dusty, and all kinds of crazy things. But you can see literally almost the curvature of the earth, and you're running, and it seems like you're never getting there. You're never getting there. And people will come back like, yeah, it's just, around the next turn. And it's not, it's another 30 miles, right? I'm like, don't tempt me like that. But I remember running and being like, I'm never going to get there. How far, right? And the guy's like, it's, run into the horizon. But when you get to the horizon, something crazy happens, man. It freaking changes. And also in the horizon's another, far sea away. It's so far down the road. It got me thinking, we're never going to catch the horizon, because each time we get there, it changes. But we can turn around and always look and see how far we've come. And that is amazing, because you see the milestones, the markers. I remember when I passed that tree. I remember when I passed over that mountain. But I remember when I stopped using. I remember when I had to change this. And I got thinking, we're kind of always in this gap. When you look back now at the isolation, as a marker versus now as you're running towards that horizon, what do you think the biggest inner change you've had is? Because when you were in isolation, there's no way you could see where you're going and where you are today. But you can look back and see that. Like, what do you think about when you look back and remember the Ben that was isolated, that shouldn't have been, because that's not in his character?
I think the biggest change is today I feel part of.
Yes.
When I was in the throes of it all, and I was isolated, I was looking to blame other people, and I was very confused. I didn't understand. I didn't want to be doing some of the things I was doing. I'd make promises to myself and promises to other people. I didn't understand why I couldn't keep them, and just that feeling of loneliness. And I love the metaphor of looking back. And what you said at the start of the podcast about not sort of saying I am an addict or I am this. I think I agree with that. I think it's really important to stop where you are and turn around and look back.
Yes.
Instead of just keep charging forward.
Yeah.
Because it is important to remember those. For me, in my own recovery, it is important to look back and not only see how far I've come, by taking little steps each day. And the people who have picked me up along the way and the people that I've picked up along the way, it's not just me on that trail now. There's hundreds, there's thousands, there's the universe is with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where before it was myself digging a hole. I wasn't going forwards. I wasn't going backwards. I was digging a hole downwards.
Yep. You're absolutely spot on, brother. And I love that. And I think that most of us don't do that. I mean, when we listen to the inspirational, like, TikToks and social media reels and stuff, it's all about bigger, better, faster, stronger. And that's not what this is about. It's about consistency. It's about time. It's about communication and relationship. It's about being in the moment, because I say this to my athletes quite a bit, when they get a little bit too focused on the end. It's like, when you line up for a half marathon or marathon, it's inappropriate to think about the finish line, because 13.1 or 26.2, a lot can happen on that journey. And so if you're so focused on crossing that finish line, there's a good chance that you're not prepared for the sucker punches of fatigue or mental anguish or injury, right? And so it's like, if we look too far ahead at that horizon, it seems daunting, but like, slow down. Look at where you are right now. That's why I think metaphor and running and recovery intertwine so well. So I am curious about that. When you first started getting involved with the Speed Freaks, and you started finding this community and these people that had like minds, what did you start noticing that was similar between you and them when it came to the addiction, the erase and replace philosophy? Like, you are all on a mission to do something that you didn't think was possible. Although your goals are maybe different, the theme of them are quite the same. It's about becoming something better than when you started. What really, impressed you about the caliber of people who some folks would call addicts and throwaways and cheaters and liars? Because I've got a whole different mindset now on the people that struggle with addiction, myself included, because we're not the throwaway people. We're not the weak-minded individuals. What did you come to know about your own addiction and the people that, community and society would label addicts?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a few points I'd love to touch on there. The first thing, so one of the things I noticed was not just from myself and the participants, but how the community itself responded to us.
Yes.
When we went out into the community to events, and it was overwhelmingly positive.
Yes.
And I don't think I was quite expecting that. So just to give a quick bit of a backstory, the Speed Freaks was, I know you've had Adder on, it was launched in 2017 in Christchurch, other end of the city. And they were looking to move to Auckland, where I was based, and they'd put stuff out on social media. I did a bit of research and I thought, well, this is going to work. This is exactly what I've done, and it's working for me. So I want to be part of this. So I reached out to Anna, and we had a Zoom meeting, and I was quite nervous, and I said, I'm not really sure I'm a runner. I was still quite heavy at the time. I was like, I can run a 10K maybe. And I said, but this is my story. I said, I'd love to help out if I can. And she said, come along. So I did some training, and we launched our first Speed Freaks run in Auckland. At a treatment centre. And I was very nervous turning up for my first time. I didn't really know what to expect. But everybody there was attending this run walk club called the Speed Freaks. They were all there of their own free will. No one at the treatment centre, no one was forcing them to be there. And I found a whole lot of people that had, not all of them, but a lot of them had sparks in their eye, and they had this little glimmer of sort of hope, and that inspired me.
Yes.
So one thing I've noticed over the time is we finish all our run walks with a gratitude circle, and this what I've noticed over time is when a participant comes along, the first couple of times they share at the gratitude circle, they often really struggle, and they might say, "Oh, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here," or something very sort of short and small. Then it transforms to sort of external things. And I might say, I'm grateful that we had a beautiful sunny morning. And I'm grateful for the birds and the nature and the trees and the fresh air. And then that same participant will transform from that to I'm grateful for the opportunity that my body could just move me 5Ks. I'm grateful that I was able to do that a little bit faster than I did last time. I was grateful that I could run the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then the real transformation is when they start, their gratitude turns into, I'm grateful for so-and-so. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for our connection. And for me, that sort of sums up. And I see it all the time. They start from not really knowing what to be grateful for external things like nature and whatnot, then grateful for internal things, and then they're looking out, to other people. They're thinking, they're bringing other people in. And that's really amazing.
Man.
The other part
I
is
love
when
it.
sorry.
No, go ahead. Please continue.
The other part is, so after a Speed Freaks participant comes for a number of weeks, they get presented with a blue Speed Freaks shirt.
Yeah, I have one of those. I love it.
Yes, you do. I need to jump on your website and get me an Addict II Athlete.
Well, because you're a guest on the podcast, it's coming, so don't worry. Yeah.
Yes. We then work towards getting out into the community to do an event, and this could be a local park run, or we work towards local events, maybe a trail 10K or a trail 5K. And we have these every week. There's big groups of Speed Freaks that go out into the community to these events. And, 3 years ago in Auckland, there may have been 5 or 6 of us that would turn up in these blue Speed Freaks shirts, a couple of coaches and a few participants.
Yeah.
And over the years, that's now turned into, sometimes there'll be 40 or 50 coaches and participants at a park run or at an event all around the country. We've got 26 walk runs each week, and then we do events on top of that. That's grown because members of the community have welcomed us in and gone, who are those guys? What are you guys doing? And then gone, I want to be part of that. And that's the whole Speed Freaks philosophy, is it being volunteer-led, community-led, and that integration, building pro-social relationships into the community. So not only have I been inspired and impressed by the Speed Freaks runners, but I've been equally inspired and impressed by how the community has embraced them. And these are people who so often haven't felt comfortable walking into a supermarket because they might have an ankle bracelet on, or not comfortable just walking down the street or anywhere in public. And they're turning up to an event wearing a Speed Freaks shirt with complete strangers screaming and yelling and clapping for them as they come down the line. And then in turn, they do the same thing. No one gets left behind.
Yes.
The Speed Freaks are the last ones there calling people in.
Love
it,
man. See, that's the beauty of this is why I am so pleased to be associated, because when we started in 2011, there were a lot of things that we got kind of nailed for. The first one was the stepping out of the shadows of anonymity. I mean, that being anonymous was the number one thing. You can't let anyone know. And we know that in 2024, anonymity can kill you. Like, we've got to share this so that the other person can hear this. And I understand why it was so important through the 12-step era. I understand it because you needed to be aware of that. And I mean, business deals and associations and relationships were established off of, handshakes. And so you needed to know who you were being connected to. It's changed now. I think that when I first started and I showed up for their very first 5K, our 5 original athletes in 2011, and they said, we want to wear these shirts we just printed, Addict II Athlete. I'm like, ooh, are you guys sure? Because the community, people are going to know that you guys have addictions. And they're like, we don't care. And so much so that the first race we did was with the local mayor of the town of a very large city here in Utah, in the great state, the great country of America here. And I'm like, everyone's going to judge you. But I didn't say these things, but I'm thinking we're breaking every rule of recovery, which they're all unwritten. You can break these things. They put them on, they ran, and the mayor of this large city, Provo, stopped each one that passed him and said, Addict II Athlete, what's that? So now all of a sudden here they are bearing their testimony of recovery to the mayor. And I love thinking that the mayor was thinking, wait a minute, I'm getting beat by an ex-heroin addict. Like, I better bump up my training, right? And you're right. And the community, and I didn't realize this, but like us not being afraid to share with the community who we are and what we're overcoming, it changes their perception on what an addict is. Because as you know, Ben, as I've seen too, everyone has someone in their family that struggles with something, whether it's a substance abuse, alcohol, pornography, eating. Everyone has someone. That's how big addiction is, unfortunately. And so when they see someone like, the Addict II Athlete team or the Speed Freaks team out there, they're like, wait a minute. If these guys are doing it, maybe my brother can. Or if these guys are doing it, maybe I can. And don't you think that's the best way to show, is to simply just show up and to have people see you for who you are? It's pretty amazing.
We have to, I have to recover loudly.
Yes.
It is so important. I work a corporate job. I understand anonymity and why it did have its place.
Yep.
And I respect other people's anonymity if that's the way they choose. But for me, I've got a story to tell, and it's a bloody exciting one. And if I can just give a tiny bit of hope or inspiration, just like all our Speed Freaks participants do when they earn their shirt, the blue shirt is earned. And what we've found with the community is not only have they been, sort of tolerant or welcoming of the Speed Freaks coming along, they've wanted to get involved. There's a reason why we've got 120 volunteer coaches around the country now.
Yep.
Not all of them have lived experience like myself.
No.
But what all of them do have is they know someone, a family or a friend who's been affected by it. And, a lot of them, they're all in the running community, which is an incredible community in itself. And they've wanted to get involved and give back. So it's just such an exciting thing to be.
I love it. That's what's funny too, is and I love that this is why I get so excited and charged talking to you guys, is because you're experiencing the things that we've seen and we continue to see, but like, it's still so fresh and so new. I was blown away when I started seeing, we call them the muggles, right? The non-magic folk, the people that don't have addictions, that never have, but have someone that they know. And I love when the muggles come on, because they are the most passionate, the most supportive. And instead of traditionally AA and Al-Anon moving them apart, we put them together and we created the home team. We got a home team advantage. And I love the fact that I can walk into any Addict Athlete meeting and not know who's an addict and who's a muggle, because it doesn't matter. We're all on the same team. And that to me is one of the most beautiful community connections. Because Speed Freaks has created this, I know you're going to succeed, because you're not making it special. You're not making it unique. You're making it inclusive. One of the funny things we do out here is I don't really like it or let the athletes participate in the sober recreational leagues. We have a big sober softball league and a big sober, like volleyball thing. And that's great, but that keeps you segmented into one group. You're not abnormal. You get to be right in the city league, right in the main events. You don't need to ostracize yourself into this community. I think they're great and they're fantastic, but you're not abnormal. And so when we have the Addict Athlete team out playing, city recreational softball, guess what? You're walking billboards to your recovery. And it's just been amazing to show them that you're not broken. You have a unique perspective in life that someone else needs to hear. Recover out loud. I love that, because non-traditionally, brother, like you 10 years ago, 15 years, 20 years ago, that's unheard of. And so I'm so happy that you've created this movement out there with the Speed Freaks team that normalizes the fact that everyone struggles with something. I'm curious what you've been most proud about, what you've been most, I guess, like excited about in your own journey. Like, was it an event? Was it a situation? Was it a certain person? Because I think it's kind of a neat thing we can do, again, turn around and look back and be like, I accomplished this. I did this. Like when I did my first ultra marathon, I thought, I just ran 50 miles. That's insane. But to me, I'm thinking, if I can do that, then I can also do this. I can finish school. I can get the job that I want. I can ask for the raise that I want, because I can do hard things. What's been some of those peak experiences you've had so far? Because we know there's more on the horizon.
I've already mentioned the first one, and that was running 3 kilometers, which is almost 2 miles. So it's just shy of 2 miles around the block of where I was living at the time, because that was the result of consistency.
Yes.
And that gave me hope, if I can do this. 3 months earlier, I couldn't run to the end of my driveway.
Yeah.
So that was a big one. I then went on to, within the year, with the help of a coach who was also in recovery, I then ran my first marathon. It took me 6 hours and 14 minutes.
Beautiful.
So
That's a
I was
long
out
time
there
to be
for a
moving.
very, very
Love
long
it.
time.
Love it.
I went back 2 years later and ran that same marathon in 3 hours 43.
Beautiful.
And that's just from showing up and being consistent. So I think
Beautiful.
my dad was a really good marathon runner. So there's something about the road marathon. As much as I love the trails, and that's where my heart is, my dad passed away when I was 19, and he was a very good marathon runner. 2 hours 21 was his marathon time, and I spent a lot of time thinking and feeling connected to my dad when I run. So anytime I run a road marathon, I think is really special to me for that connection with my dad. I had the opportunity earlier this year to be one of the pacers at Rotorua Marathon, which is a famous marathon in New Zealand, and I paced the 4 hour 15 lot. So I had a balloon and helping people across the line reach their goals. Being of service was one of the highlights of my enthusiastic amateur running career at the moment.
I love
Then
it.
probably the pinnacle though was just over a year ago, beginning of last year. I ran the Tarawera 102k ultra marathon.
Yeah.
A fiance was pregnant with our son at the time. Her and my mum were waiting at the finish line, and I crossed that finish line in tears. And I knew then that I could do hard things.
Beautiful, man.
We now have a 14-month-old beautiful baby boy that was in my fiance's tummy at the time, and
I love it.
And that was a real standing on that finishing line. It was, it was not getting to the finish line that made that so special. Everything I had done to get to the start line.
Yes. See, that's the beauty of it, brother. Listeners, I want you to pay particular attention to that. It's, when you're out there on the running course, if something ever goes wrong, if the course is a little too tough or something happens, that's why it's inappropriate to think of the finish line. If something happens, you get the dreaded DNF, did not finish. And that hurts. But I would rather have someone take a DNF than get a DNS, did not start, right? Because that means you didn't have the courage to even pull up. You let something else get in the way. So you saying that, brother, I can feel it. But shifting gears just ever so slightly with the time that we have, the cheerleaders that support us, your son, your little dude, he doesn't know dad as an addict. He doesn't know him he knows he's going to know dad as an athlete, as an agent of sobriety, as a servant, as a helper. How amazing is that to you to know that he's going to get you at your absolute best, but he's also going to know that your absolute best came at an emotional price because that's who you are. Like, how amazing is that for you to be able to show up for him? Because if you would have stayed stuck in that addiction, it would have been a very different experience, wouldn't it?
It's the greatest gift. I can receive and I can give. Being the man I am today, being the father I am, being the human I am, is just something I'm incredibly grateful for and excited about the future.
Yes.
Yeah, it gets me emotional thinking about that.
It should. Yeah, it should. I think that's amazing. Shows how much love you have in your heart, and that's why you're doing this. When you peel back all the layers of why we pursue recovery, why we want to better ourselves, why we want to have these experiences, it's to have the relationships that we truly deserve and to show up for them. And that to me is one of the greatest things. I mean, you can take away our money, our cars, our homes, our livelihood. You can take all that away, but the hardest thing that addiction takes is relationships. And so I think people in recovery who start to erase and replace start to see the magnitude of why those relationships are important. And it starts with you having a relationship with yourself and then others. And that's the most beautiful finish line of any story, I think, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Man,
I think it's very, very important as well, and I know we need to wrap it up soon,
you're fine.
but I had a realization probably last year, and I was heading down a path that a lot of my friends were heading down, where we wanted to go further, we wanted to go longer. We start with the half marathon, and then we go marathon and
Yeah.
50k and 100k, and then you got to do a miler, and then you got 200 milers, and I could see
Yeah.
myself heading down that path. And I did my 100k. Actually, I thought, right, next I got to earn myself a buckle, or I got to do it. I got to go over and do Western States or Hard Rock or something like that. And then I thought, you know what? I'd love to do that one day, but right now I want to be a father. I
Yes.
don't want to spend 8 hours training on a Sunday
Yep.
so I can chase some sort of finish line. I want to
Beautiful.
chase start lines. I want to chase achievable ones. And I want to do that around or in addition to me being of service as a Speed Freaks coach, being a partner, being a son, being a brother, and most importantly, being a father. So
Absolutely.
I think it's important to have goals, but
Hmm.
and that was a big relief, and I'm really glad I had that sort of realization that I don't need to do a miler. I don't need to do a 200 miler to prove I can do hard things. I've proved that to myself. What I need
Absolutely.
to do now, what I need to do at the moment, is enjoy the process, enjoy the training, be a present father, and one day, if I want to, I can go further, faster, and longer.
Absolutely. It'll be there. And I think you are feeling something very, I would say, spiritual, of a mindset of, whenever you start feeling as though you're isolating, you're not supposed to do that, right? You are not
Mm.
supposed to be alone. And I can feel that, your energy. So I look at that, right? You talked about your isolation. And when you're training for 8 hours, 9 hours, whatever, you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're alone. You, Ben, are not supposed to be there. You are supposed to be the coach in the middle of the pack, the pacer. You're supposed to be there. That is your calling. And I love the fact that you feel it naturally, because I'm hearing you and I'm like, he doesn't realize what he's saying. He's like, you're not supposed to be alone. That time will come after you've done your work. I love that, brother. That's the beauty of these kind of relationships and these connections, is you get to see it for all that it's worth. So, well, and yeah, when you are ready and you want to bring that little family of yours over, you've always got a place to stay here in beautiful Springville, Utah. We got plenty of room. Come run some races out here with your fam.
Well, we will actually I'm bringing the family over for a work conference in Miami in June, and we are going to tag on a few weeks. So I'd love to connect with you. I'm
Love
not
it.
sure how far away Utah is, but we're willing to travel. And we're going to be in Miami for about a week, and then we'd love to connect with some of your groups around and
My
yourself.
goodness.
And so we'll stay in contact because we haven't planned the rest of our trip yet.
Yeah, Miami is like another country to where Utah is. It's pretty far, but Google Utah and see all of the amazing stuff that we have here. We have amazing parks. We've got amazing, like, natural, national parks. It's amazing. It's all right here in the Utah, like, western states. Like, it's beautiful. So I'll send you some info. But man, I'm telling you, brother, this is why I love what the Speed Freaks are doing. You guys are passionate. You're strong. I love that we can affiliate and bounce ideas and teams off of each other, because I'm coming to New Zealand one of these days. So yeah, I want to hang out with you guys too. That's God's country in my eyes.
Can't wait to have you. Can't wait to host you over here. I just want to also make it very clear
Go
that
ahead.
I'm just one of 120 volunteer coaches who do what we do. And
I
if
love
you'd
it.
spoken to any one of those other 119 coaches,
Yeah,
you would have got an inspiring story out of them. It
I
may
believe
not
it.
be lived experience, but I'm just part of something greater, and
Yeah,
it's
and
an
maybe they
absolute
won't be
honor.
as good looking as you, but hey, their passions are right. No, I love it. And that's why you should tell them, hey, we got Coach Blue wants to talk to you, because their stories need to get out too. And I love this. I know that Anna and the Speed Freaks, we have some ideas we want to collaborate with and some stuff we want to do together, because as far as I'm concerned, you guys are one and the same, and the passion's the same. I mean, we're all on the exact same team. So, brother, it's been a privilege. How do people find you if they want to follow you guys? Like, what's your social media outlets? Because you're going to gain a few folks that want to watch and kind of support you from afar.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you want to get in contact, if you want to follow the Speed Freaks, just looking for their handle. It is, you can search the Speed Freaks NZ on Instagram, or it's the underscore speed underscore freaks. You can also
Perfect.
look them up at speedfreaks.org.nz. If you want to reach out to me personally, you can search for Ben Fraser on Instagram, or my handle. Let me just figure out what it actually is. It is Benny underscore B underscore Fraser. So that's
Perfect.
BENNY underscore B underscore Fraser. And yeah, happy
Awesome.
for anyone to reach out. And looking forward to hopefully catching up with some of you and your team middle of next year.
We will 100% do that. And I'll make sure, listeners, all of those socials are on the show notes. So make sure that after the podcast, you go follow those through the connections there. And Ben, it's been an honor and a privilege, my brother. I want you to know how much we love you. We support you guys. I look forward to more interactions. This isn't going to be the last time you and I talk. I know that for sure. So I hope you have a beautiful holiday. Say thank you to your family for letting us carve out some time, because I know that's precious too. But athletes, you've been well fed. Please share this podcast with anyone who might be beginning that journey, who might be lining up for that starting line of recovery, because these are the words that can inspire you to kind of make that next step. So on behalf of the Speed Freaks and Team Addict II Athlete, do your best, everyone out there, to turn your mess into your message.